You know what keeps me up at night as a business owner? Falling behind, not just on trends, but on the tools and systems that are actually moving the needle right now. And here's a stat that really hit me. Every day your business is late to AI, you fall 2 days behind. 2 days every single day. The competition is only moving faster. So sitting on the sidelines and waiting to figure it out, that's just not an option anymore. Fortunately, there is NetSuite next. Here's the thing. You probably already know about NetSuite, the AI-powered business management suite, trusted by over 43,000 customers that securely connects all of your data, financials, inventory, commerce, HR, and CRM, all in one single source of truth. But NetSuite Next, this is the next huge step and leap in how business gets done, because now AI is built into absolutely everything that you do. It automatically surfaces custom insights throughout your day, so you always know what's happening in your business. AI agents work right alongside you to solve problems and handle routine work. And anytime you have a question about anything, you just ask, like having a conversation with the smartest colleague you've ever had. And here's what I really love. NetSuite is customized for a wide range of industries, so it actually supports the way your specific business works. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. If I needed a business management suite, this is exactly what I'd use. Whether your company earns millions or even hundreds of millions, it's time for NetSuite Next, where your business meets AI. For the very first time, you can try NetSuite Next for free. If your revenues are at least in the seven figures, go to netsuite.ai/SPI. Built for every industry, ready for every boardroom, netsuite.ai/SPI. Your business is growing. That's awesome. But are you stuck doing all the jobs because no one else gets it? Don't be a bottleneck at this crucial time. Indeed is all you need to find someone with the right skills. Stop struggling to get your listing noticed on other sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post stands out right away. It really works. Sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire. So join the over 1 million companies already using Indeed. That's where I'd go if I were looking for anyone from podcast editors to community experts. Background matters, and Indeed allows me to get super specific about it. I'd want someone who understands our brand and has experience with the right software and services. The thing about Indeed sponsored jobs is that I'd get people who actually fit my description. No more digging through resumes. Plus, you only pay for results. No monthly subscriptions, just a boost when you need to hire fast. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results now with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Just go to Indeed.com/SmartPassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
That's the first test, is can I scale it beyond just me helping the person in a one-on-one setting to a group setting? And then I think the next test is, well, can I scale it beyond me helping them to someone I've trained helping a group of people? That's the difference that made the difference for me. And so we've done probably 80 million or so in the last decade. And that's why. For me, it comes down to good people and good process. But then I think something clicked about a year or so ago. And I realized that there were all these people in the internet marketing world that had significantly less business acumen than I did, but they were the ones that were getting all the opportunities, because the person who's most visible gets the most opportunities. I was the anti-personal brand guy. I started my first Instagram like 9 months ago. That's how anti-personal brand I was. I mean, I just had a Facebook and a LinkedIn. But now we're investing a lot more, obviously, in that, building the Chandler Bolt brand all around, scaling to 8 figures, and then on the selfpublishing.com side of things as well.
Yo, we have an amazing storyline today. Somebody who had built a business to 8 figures and coming back and going, you know what? I should finally start my Instagram. And he started his Instagram 9 months ago and is now leaning into personal brand. Why? First of all, how did you get to 8 figures? What were the tactics you used? And what did you regret? And how and why are you going into personal brand now? A lot of interesting questions come up, I'm sure, when you hear that story. But we're going to get all the answers today from Chandler Bolt, author extraordinaire, also helper of authors. He's helped over 7,000 people tell their story, self-publish their own books at selfpublishing.com. First of all, what a domain. But it was formerly known as Self-Publishing School. And today we're going to dive in. And it's not just me today. Both Liz and I, our community director extraordinaire, Liz and I, are both interviewing Chandler. We're going to tackle it from kind of different perspectives, from a marketing perspective, from a why perspective, and then diving into personal brand. And I also finish off the episode by asking about books today. Is it still worth the time and effort to publish a book, whether you're going traditional or self-publish? Doesn't even matter now. What do you do with that? Is it just AI slop now? What is it? We're going to dive into that and more. Here he is, Chandler Bolt. Chandler, welcome to the SPI podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Pat, it's a dream come true. Glad to be here.
And this time you got both Liz and I here to dissect all the amazing things you're doing. Liz, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good, and I'm really excited to dive into Chandler and how he's built his personal brand because, y'all, fun fact, I actually met Chandler back in it was like 2017, 2018, when he was at a conference sponsoring it, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And I just remember him and his shirts, right? Like, you guys can't see him, but he's got this awesome shirt on right now. And I just remember him for his smile and his shirts. And the fact that he didn't have a personal brand and now he does, I think is so awesome because he's going to knock it out of the park just from the shirts alone, guys. Like, this is so exciting. He's clearly a person who's going to have a strong personal brand, and I can't wait to dig in.
You know what, Liz? It's interesting you mentioned that. I never noticed the shirts, but you were absolutely right. The Hawaiian bright colored shirts, just like Chandler's personality. And Chandler, I remember you from a long time ago. You've been at this for a very long time. And my recollection of how you got started was just you got so interested in what everybody else was doing. You came at it in the right angle. You just continued to be a part of the community, the blogosphere, then the podcast sphere, and now helping authors, of course. And you scaled up big in a way that many others have not. We're talking about here today. You scaled to 8 figures without even a personal brand. And that is insane, man. But now you're going into personal brand. And so we want to ask you why and all those things. But maybe for those who don't know your origin story, tell us a little bit about how you got into, self-publishing school and into the world of online business.
Yeah, I'm an unlikely author. I mean, I'm a college dropout, C-level English student with ADHD, but I like teaching what I've done. I think that's probably a common thread with the three of us is do the thing. And then if it goes well, teach the thing. And so when I was dropping out of school, I published a couple books. Those books started doing well. Then people started asking, how are you doing that? And then that led to, inspired by people like you guys, led to starting to teach it. And then that led to self-publishing school, which ultimately became selfpublishing.com. And then now we've published about 7,000 books over the last decade. And we publish 2 to 5 books a day. So we just publish books all day, every day. And it's funny, the thread way back, I think Azul Terrones, who you've done a bunch of work with, he was probably in that first cohort. The very first cohort of people that we helped publish a book, I think there was 44 people. And 60% of them published a book in 6 months. And so then that was kind of the proof of concept to say, hey, we've got something here. And then ever since, we've just been trying to tweak, refine, and improve the process.
Wow, that is crazy. And I do want to dive into a little bit later in this conversation about the world of authorship today and the world of AI and all that stuff and how do we compete? Is it still worth doing? I'm very curious your thoughts about that. I am curious about your first book, though. What inspired you to write that, and what was that book?
Yeah, so the very first book is called Breaking Out of a Broken System. I wrote it with my brother, and it was this, my brother's a Grammy-nominated rock and roll musician. I was the business guy, kind of having a little bit of early success in business in high school and college. And we came from the middle of nowhere where no one does this stuff. And so we kind of looked up. I remember being on the phone with him. He's on tour. I'm in college. And we're talking about going off to school. And I'm like, man, I thought everybody knew the stuff that our parents taught us. But then I got here and realized no one learned this stuff. And he said, oh yeah, I had that same experience. And then we said, what if we write a book about this? And it's kind of these 15 things that our parents taught us. And it's his perspective. He's the musician at the time. My perspective is a business guy. And so we did that. And I did another book almost kind of simultaneously. And one was a project for charity. And that one was a project for charity. The other one was just kind of a fun thing. And they just started stacking and paid the bills when I dropped out of school.
Yeah. Why books? Why not an online course or a blog or something like that? What made you choose books specifically?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know that I chose books as much as books chose me. Because, I would have never, I was the guy that I hated reading. I hated writing. I would, and growing up, I would be in some of the gifted and talented classes, but none of the gifted English classes because I sucked at it and I didn't want to read and write. And that was really, if you get in those higher level English classes, that's all it is. And I hated that. But I don't know. I felt like, hey, I've got these things to share. Let's maybe make a PDF or let's put it in writing. Because I think even at that time, the internet marketing world wasn't, it wasn't so in your face like it is today. And courses and coaching and all that wasn't really a thing either. So we just said, hey, what if we put this in a PDF? And then that evolved into what if we put this on Amazon? And then we just kind of used some of the guerrilla marketing tactics that I learned kind of doing blue collar businesses and just parlayed that over into the book stuff. And the book started catching fire.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's so many questions, Liz. I'm sure you want to start somewhere with like the marketing of this and scaling up something like this, a small group effort to help authors write books, into something that's a multi-million-dollar business. But where's your curiosity at, Liz, on this?
Yeah. So, y'all, I'm a marketer through and through. I geek out on that stuff. And Chandler just said guerrilla marketing tactics. So I want to hear more about that, right? So clearly you had some experience, right? So maybe give us an overview of what you were doing beforehand and how you use that to sell your book with your brother and maybe even, launch and start self-publishing.
Yeah, it's funny when you're starting out, you just do the things that don't scale. And people tell you don't do that. That doesn't scale, but that's the reason it works. And so early on, I ran a house painting company in college, and that was my first business that hit six figures. And I did that in my freshman summer. And it wasn't sexy. It wasn't a sexy business. It wasn't sexy marketing. It was knocking on doors. It was putting flyers on mailboxes. And then it was PR, which that was the real big breakthrough. It was when I realized I'm knocking on doors. I mean, this is in the South. I'm getting cussed out. I'm getting people threatening to pull guns on me. I mean, this is, not exactly a walk in the park. But one day I walked by this mailbox and realized, what if I could just get in those mailboxes? There's tens of thousands of those mailboxes in this county. How would I do that? Oh, well, I just got to make one sale, and that's the person who can put me in the newspaper. And so then I kind of pivoted my approach a little bit, and I said, I'm going to take an hour every week to just try to get in the newspaper. And then a few weeks later, I got in the newspaper, and then boom, all of these leads started flowing in. We would knock on someone's door, except this time we say, oh, you may have seen us in the paper. Anyway, let's talk about painting your house, right? So now we have social proof. And so it just started with all these things. And so that was the funny thing, is when I started self-publishing school, now selfpublishing.com, I just applied the same thing, which was partnerships. And I said, well, who's already got these big audiences? Because I'm nobody. I got no audience. And if I can just get them to put me in front of their people, well, then I can get in front of thousands, tens of thousands of people, maybe a lot more than that. And so partnerships were the kind of how we went from 0 to 1 million in the first year. And it was just a few trusted people that were willing to put me in front of their audience, which I'm forever grateful for.
Wow. The way you just dropped that 0 to 1 million in the first year, like, no big deal, but that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I shared that I met Chandler way back in the day, and it was through a guy named Jeff Goins, who I know his email list at the time was probably about 150,000 people. So it makes sense if you can get into, a few people like Jeff, you can scale pretty quickly. I love that so much.
Yeah, virtual mailboxes now in the internet world versus, the actual mailboxes. But it's true. And, email marketing and all that kind of stuff playing a role in this too. That's Liz's expertise, of course. And now she's brought that over to the SPI community. But, I'm curious on the why. There's a lot of people who I know help authors in different kinds of ways. And a lot of them have their sort of small, tight group of authors that they help one at a time or two at a time, five at a time. And they're doing really well. But I mean, these numbers that you're talking about are explosive. I mean, they're huge. What is the difference? How are you, or what did you do to scale a business like this? What are the scalable things within a business like this that you were able to kind of take and multiply?
I think in the beginning, it's one-to-one, as you mentioned. It's how can I help one person, or in a small group setting, can I replicate the results that I had in a small group? Which I think for most people watching or listening, really smart first step. So I'm going to go from one-to-one to one-to-many. And maybe I've got a group coaching program or a course or a membership or whatever. And okay, now, but from there, can I scale it? So that's the first test, is can I scale it beyond just me helping the person in a one-on-one setting to a group setting? And then I think the next test is, well, can I scale it beyond me helping them to someone I've trained helping a group of people? And so I think that's the difference that made the difference for me. And so we've done probably 80 million or so in the last decade. And that's why first off, you got to have scalable customer acquisition channels. So you got to be able to acquire those customers at scale. But then obviously you got to have a great product and deliver great results. And you got to be able to do that at scale and replicate yourself. And so when I think about that, we call it a profit bridge. There's kind of those core fundamentals there. So you got to get paying customers. That's first. Then you got to have product market fit, which is kind of the difference between just getting a little bit of customers or getting customers at scale. Then you got to move from that to being profitable and be able to, run a profitable business. There's a lot, 3 Ps. These are all Ps. But so then you're profitable, then you've got people. So you've got to be able to, that's probably our biggest thing that we're really good at is just really great people. And then you've got process to kind of accelerate that. So sorry, I know it's kind of a long answer and a little bit dense, but those are the kind of the core building blocks of how I think about it to just, not just have a 6 or 7 figure business, which is a great business, by the way. But how do you do it at scale?
Yeah. Beyond the person who's starting the company is really the magic sauce, right? Like an agency model type of thing. And I've seen a lot of people go down that route, hiring people to teach the thing that they want to teach, but they run into problems sometimes. They don't teach it the right way or the same kind of way. People want the initial person, not somebody who they hired. How do you get around those kinds of things? How do you make sure that when you hire people to teach what you have initially taught to do, not just one to many, but from many to many, how do you ensure the quality is still there? What kind of training happens in order for you to do something like that?
That's a great question. It's so funny when you're just starting out, you think, I'm so special. There's no possible way that I could create a system around this, much less train somebody else to do what I do. And then you get to doing it for a while, and then you realize, oh, the people on my team are actually way more qualified than even I am at this point. And so I think for me, it comes down to good people and good process. So do you have great people? And which for us, kind of the hard line is, have you done the thing? Because that's the part that really pisses me off. That's why I dropped out of college, because I got tired of learning how to run a business from professors who have never ran businesses. So I'm not going to put coaches, for example. That's a big part of what we do is we've got coaches that work with authors one-on-one. Well, I'm not going to put a coach in there that hasn't published a book. That would be the antithesis of everything I believe in. So I want to make sure that my coaches have done it. And then I want to have a proven process that we coach to, so that we can predictably create a great result. So it's the same way, it's almost like the franchise method. It's the same way that, a Chick-fil-A or a Target or whatever else, you can have a repeatable customer experience. It's because they've got great process and they've got great people. And so I think from the beginning, we kind of designed that to where, and it's difficult because even still, people say, oh yeah, but Chandler, I won't use my coach. I'm like, absolutely not. It's not happening. But I've got great coaches that are way better than me, and they're in the trenches. I'm so far removed from this that the best person is actually the person who's a few steps ahead of you. And we have a proven process that they're going to coach to. And so that's kind of how I don't know if I would say get around, but just basically deflect that objection and show the person that this is the best way that we can serve them.
Yeah, almost spin that objection and be like, no, you don't actually want to work with me. You want to work with this person. Yeah, I love that.
So Chandler, you keep mentioning, good people, good processes. I want to take you back to, that first year, getting in front of people, maybe like Pat or Jeff Goins, and now you have coaches that do this for you. What are some of those personality traits that you would attribute to your coaches or even yourself that allow you to get in front of those bigger names so that they can help you scale? Because I'm all about, I say I'm down with OPP, other people's platforms. It sounds like Chandler is the same, right? So what are some of those personality traits or those things that you coach your coaches on to put their best foot forward so you guys can continue to, partner with the right people?
I like that. I like that OPP framework. I think there's probably 3 traits that stand out. First off, you got to be a go-giver. So not looking to take, but looking to give. I think you should be interested, not interesting. And then you should just dig your well before you're thirsty. So those are kind of the 3 big things that I think back for me. Pat, you're probably a testament to this. Maybe a decade ago, one of the first years I got in business, I took on this challenge where I wrote a thank you card every single day for a year. And it just forced me to do 2 things. One, it forced me to constantly be looking for people and things that I'm thankful for, because I'm like, I got to write a card today. So I got to find somebody. And which is just like a really fun shift. But it also was one of the best ways to dig my well before I'm thirsty. And so I think, Pat, you're probably on the receiving end of one of those, and a bunch of other people where I'd be listening to their podcasts, or I would just be inspired by them, and I would just write them something. Or I think back in the day, I went on this big gift giving spree too. So I think, Pat, I shipped you stuff, shipped your kids stuff or something. And so I was just, if I was inspired by people, if I was thankful for them, I would just send them stuff. And what ended up happening is the first people that put me on their platform were the random people that I sent the gift to. And so I think it's a good reminder for me to just zig when everyone else is zagging. In a world where the lowest common denominator is AI slop, is an automated email, is whatever else, I would reach out to people and say, hey, what's your snail mail address? And that's the part that doesn't get filtered by the assistant, or that's the part that people keep. I mean, it leaves a real human connection. And so then, and it wasn't transactional in any way, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then 3 weeks later, I'm going to say, hey, by the way, can you promote my stuff? It was just very organic. And then all these things started popping up. And those first people the OPP, the other people's platforms that I got on were those people. I remember it was Jamie Tardy, it was James Schramko, it was a couple others. And I remember Jamie said, yeah, my kids know you as the guy that sends us gifts. And it was just because I try to send stuff for the family or for the spouse or for whatever, because I'm like, hey, I want to send something of utility, but I also want to send something to where if it's in your home, well, then you're using it. And every time you see that, it's like, oh yeah, Chandler sent us that. And so just little things like that I think help me get my start. But then obviously I look for that in my coaches, because I want to make sure they're interested, not interesting, that they're go-givers, that they're digging their well before they're thirsty, like they're looking to add value in any way they can.
That's really cool. Yeah, the gift giving is key, and to do it because you actually care about building a relationship, not because necessarily you want something back. I think I first heard that from Jordan Harbinger when he was on the podcast. He had mentioned that's a very similar thing. If you, the sort of opposite point to that is if you're digging your well and you're thirsty, it's too late. Like, don't just start reaching out to people the moment you need something. Like, build relationships. I think Hal Elrod sent, and we use it every day. We have a knife set from Costco because his origin story involves Costco. He sent us a knife set and we still use it. And I'm so and forever grateful for Hal. In fact, there was a book called Giftology by the late John Rulin, who, rest in peace, tragically passed away in the past couple of years. But he had really tried hard to let people know about the power of gift giving and the humanness of that. And I know that is something that will live on beyond him. And I appreciate you bringing that up, and trying to see that in your coaches is really key, especially if they are the ones actually working with your customers and your students. Like, that's exactly what you want to see. So here's something I've learned after building websites for over 15 years. The gap between a great idea and a live production-ready website has always been way too wide. You've got the vision, your designer mocks it up, and then suddenly it turns into a pile of tickets, handoffs, and we'll get to it conversations. Meanwhile, your business is waiting. That's exactly the problem that Framer solves. And honestly, it's doing it in a way I've never seen before. Framer is the pro site builder for creators, teams, and businesses that want a professional site and care enough to get every detail right. It's a complete website platform, not just a builder, so your team can launch and keep improving your site all in one place. Here's what makes Framer different right now: AI agents and human work in tandem. Agents bring the speed and the scale, and your team brings the taste, judgment, and control. The agent works right on the same canvas where your real site is designed, managed, and published. It lands on the canvas, stays fully editable, and gets published when your team is ready. So you're not just getting a first draft or a vibe-coded starting point. You're getting production-ready website work faster than ever. And teams can collaborate in real time, iterate on the same page, and publish instantly. Agents help streamline collaboration, build custom code components, manage CMS content, optimize SEO settings, all shipped from one place. And for enterprise teams, Framer delivers premium hosting, enterprise-grade security, and 99.99% uptime. Companies like Perplexity and Miro trust Framer to run their .com, and now you can too. Learn how you can get more out of your site from a Framer specialist, or get started building for free today at framer.com/SPI for 30% off a Framer Pro annual plan. That's framer.com/SPI for 30% off. Framer.com/SPI. Rules and restrictions apply. Here's one of the biggest lessons I've learned building multiple businesses. The fastest growing businesses aren't doing more, they're delegating smarter. And I know that's easier said than done because finding the right person at the right time with the right skills, that's where most business owners get stuck. That's exactly why I love Upwork. Upwork is a one-stop platform to find, hire, and pay expert freelancers across web and software development, data and analytics, marketing, business operations, and more. We're talking fast access to specialized talent across 125 plus categories so you can fill skill gaps, launch projects faster, and scale support up or down without committing to full-time headcount. You can browse profiles, review past work, and even get help scoping the role so you hire with confidence and get started quickly. And with Upwork Business Plus, you get access to the top 1% of talent on Upwork with AI-powered shortlisting that matches you to the right freelancer in under 6 hours. No endless searching required. Upwork also handles contracts and payments in one place, cutting down all of that operational hassle so you can spend more time actually running your business. Thousands of businesses already trust Upwork for everything from one-off projects to ongoing support, and it's completely free to sign up. Posting a job is easy. Stop doing it all yourself. Delegate smarter with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Now, transitioning a little bit here, self-publishing.com forever had been, a company that helps people write books and come up with those ideas and publish them and get them on Amazon, become bestsellers. We've seen it. And not a lot of people, or not everybody who goes through that system kind of really directly connected it to you. They eventually find you and they see you there as the founder, but now you are leaning into that more. You're leaning into the personal brand of selfpublishing.com a little bit more. And I'm curious why you're doing that now. What is it that's happening that has made you and your team go, you know what, I need to show up more here, not just as founder, but as Chandler and who I am, and bring personality into that? Why is it happening now? And how are you doing that?
It's so funny. I was the anti-personal brand guy. And
Right.
we got to 8 figures without the brand. And I'll never forget watching people like Ryan Dice and Michael Hyatt kind of teach on this. Like, hey, huge mistake. We made this the Ryan Dice show, or we made this the Michael Hyatt show. And so now we're actually changing everything. And so I remember when Ryan Dice was pulling his face out and putting digital marketer to the forefront. Same with Michael Hyatt with full focus and all that. And so I watched that, and I'm not that smart, but I'm not that dumb either. And so I just watched from afar, and I said, oh, I should do that. And if you want to create a business that can scale without you, that, all these things. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it was a lot of Chandler. I said, all right, shh. Let's just pull Chandler in the background and let's push selfpublishing.com to the forefront. And so it was all the company. Now, I was a part of that, obviously, but then I think something clicked about a year or so ago. And I realized that there were all these people in the internet marketing world that, statistically speaking, had significantly less business acumen than I did, but they were the ones that were getting all the opportunities, or they were the ones that were, on these massive stages and all this stuff. And it just really pissed me off. But then I had to look myself in the mirror and say, this is your fault. There's this James DeMullian, he references his quote, the School of Hard Knocks guy. The world is overly cruel to the shy man and overly generous to the charismatic, or the one who just is more vocal, because the person who's most visible gets the most opportunities. And so I just watched that all around. And then I saw some friends of ours, DM Martell and a few others, just go all in on that. And I saw how it popped off in their business. And I just realized that I was being really dumb, really selfish, and leaving a lot of money on the table. And I looked at that and I said, oh, well, I've got all those skill sets. If I just decided to go pro in this area, it could be the best thing that I could do to grow this business. But not only that, beyond that, to any business that I do in the future, it's a massive asset. And so I think that simultaneously with like AI coming in and eating our search engine results, which has just been printing millions of dollars a year for us, and that they started eroding that. And so kind of born out of necessity as well, just seeing some of the tea leaves in how you acquire customers and just the cost of acquisition going up, and saying, all right, well, social media is really expensive until it isn't. Like, it's not a really good channel at low volume, but if you can break through that ceiling, it's an exponential zero CAC channel. And so we just started putting more and more chips into the table. And so now we're really building a 7-figure media company inside of an 8-figure company, and just investing a lot in that. And for the Bolt Media, which will be obviously the Chandler Bolt personal brand, but then also the selfpublishing.com content.
Yeah, so talk to us about what that is. So we've got selfpublishing.com, you have coaches to help people self-publish, right? But now we've got Chandler Bolt. Who is he? What is he doing online nowadays? And how is that mixing with selfpublishing.com, if at all?
Yeah, it's probably a dumb strategy. I'm not gonna lie, because the Chandler Bolt stuff is just
You're
scaling to
selling
eight
it,
figures.
Chandler. You're selling it.
Yes, it's so compelling. I don't know. I'm a big fan of just do and then be smarter, right? Like I'm not like
Yeah,
this
for sure.
massive strategic guy.
Yeah, ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like get so many shots on goal that you learn what is working versus spend 5 months in a cabin pontificating about this master plan that you're not actually doing stuff about. So I would say our current strategy is really dumb. I mean, what it is basically building the Chandler Bolt brand all around scaling to 8 figures. There's nothing to sell over there. The best customers will come over to selfpublishing.com naturally, but it's just teaching around scaling a business. I started my first Instagram like 9 months ago, and we got the YouTube channel and all that.
Wait. 9 months ago, you started your first Instagram?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how
That's crazy.
non-personal brand I am.
Because you had self-publishing as Instagram, right? But like for your personal name, you just set up your Instagram for the first time.
Yep.
That's wild.
And I mean,
That's
I had
wild.
to scrap and claw to even get my personal name. I mean, there were scammers on there. People kept saying that, hey, somebody's hitting me up about this scam on Instagram, but then we couldn't get them removed because, when you go to say, who are they impersonating? It's like, well, his account doesn't exist. It's like they're impersonating a guy that's not even on
Yeah.
Instagram. So
They
the
think you're the
Instagram's like, yeah,
impersonator.
okay. Yeah, exactly. So finally, it was almost like just out of that necessity, we said, all right, we got to create an Instagram because we got these scammers trying to scam people over here. But I mean, that's how anti-personal brand I was. I mean, I just had a Facebook and a LinkedIn, and that's it. But now we're investing a lot more, obviously, in that, and then on the selfpublishing.com side of things as well.
You know what? You say it's not a smart idea, but I think it's one of the smartest ideas you could have today in the world where the content itself could be replicated and shared and found on AI or ChatGPT or wherever. But people want to connect with other people. They want to have personalities that they could relate to. And so I feel like, especially as Google is changing, as search is going more AI versus traditional, a lot of those things, we can shield ourselves against those changes by being ourselves, showing up, because Chandler, you are the only Chandler Bolt that exists in this world, and Liz is the only Liz, and I'm the only Pat. And if we don't lean into that a little bit, you don't have to go all in on it. You don't have to vlog every day. You don't have to tell us what you have for breakfast, but who are you and what do you do and why can I trust you? And I think that trust and that relationship building and relatability is going to go a very long way. And what I also love about this too is it could potentially open up the avenues for you, Chandler, to, as you build new relationships, as you get more ideas, you could branch off from Chandler Bolt in any which way, right? I've branched off into Pokemon from who I am, right? I still have SPI right now, but I have Pokemon and I have other things that I have that are me, because I'm not just SPI. I have all these other things going on too. And Liz coming into SPI now, expanding outside of the world of email. And Liz has been probably one of my favorite examples of a personal brand, because you go to her website at lizwilcox.com and it's like, she's there. Her colors are there. You can feel her personality, and you already can start to build trust with her before you even speak to her, because she's speaking through the brand that Liz that you've built. Liz, I'm curious your thoughts, because you've always been so pro personal brand. What are your thoughts in the world today of bigger media companies coming into the world of personal brand and trying to put a personality behind their stuff?
Yeah, so I'm reminded of an email I got a few days ago from one of my members in my membership and saying, Liz, I'm trying to create a faceless brand. I have a blog that's anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you can do that. It's not impossible. Don't let anyone tell you no. But ... in this age of AI, people are really looking to connect. And those types of brands where you do inject the person into the personal brand are doing really well, right? And, Chandler mentioned it, Pat mentioned it, it listening. AI is everywhere and it all sounds the same. It's trained on the same systems. Even if you say, I'm Liz Wilcox, email marketer at da 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 da, it's still going to have a certain cadence to it, right? Where if I wrote the email or, made the script for my next YouTube video, it's going to be different because it is human, right? So I really, really believe in the power of a personal brand. I believe in the power of your personality. You don't have to be Pat Flynn or Chandler Bolt to have a personal brand, to have a personality. The word person is in it, right? You have a personality. And so I love that Chandler is bringing this into his empire. I love this. So Chandler, I'm the director of community over at SPI, and we have a lot of listeners that, they aspire to scale one day, but they still might be in the trenches of the, 0 to 5 years. And so they're into the personal brand thing as well. And I'm sure they would love to know, what are you doing on Instagram now that you have it? What parts of Chandler are you bringing to the surface over on Instagram? What kind of content are you bringing to share that? What's the why behind that? Why pick those parts of your personality?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's so funny you mentioned that, Liz, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I wasn't even following my own advice, because it's kind of like the faceless brand. People would ask us about a pen name with their book, and we would say, yeah, I mean, you can. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it. But it's not a great idea, because you're basically taking this massive asset that you have and just throwing it out the window and, just using this pen name instead. So, but what are we doing on Instagram? I mean, I wouldn't say we're exactly a model of what's working per se, but we're getting a lot of reps in. And so, I mean, our current strategy is kind of 60, 30, 10. So with 60% of our content is more viral for views, like with that intent, then 30 is kind of that more middle funnel educational, and then 10 is conversion content. And so that's kind of the general framework that we're thinking through and using. I learned that from a buddy of mine. And so that's what we're doing. Now we're noticing that we do a lot of long form stuff on YouTube. The polished camera stuff and the clipping that up absolutely bombs on Instagram. The face to cam, the green screen, it's like, so all about formats and it's always changing, right? But face to cam, the Yap videos, right? That's all the rage these days. Green screen stuff. Some of the carousels are popping off. A lot of that stuff is doing pretty well, but we're just iterating a lot. I would say an interesting thing, that's happened over the last few months, totally good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless, is that our revenue is growing a lot faster than our followers. And so, kind of the content creator in you is looking at those views and looking at those followers and just being pissed, because you just look around and you're thinking, everybody else is growing way faster than us. And we're putting all these resources into this. Why isn't this growing faster? But I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is revenue. And so try not to lose sight of that. And so that's started to go really well. And the way I looked at it, and this might be not relatable at all, but I mean, I just finally looked up and said, all right, there's all these things that I'm spending money on. We're spending 50 grand a month on sponsorships or partnerships. We're spending 50 grand a month on ads. And those are one-time hamster wheel revenue hits for the business. Whereas a personal brand is a thing that you have and can build forever. So then I said, well, what's the amount that I'd be willing to spend over the next year if it just broke even, or maybe didn't even break even? And I said, well, probably about $500,000. Okay, well then what is that backed into the monthly? And that was about 40 something grand a month. And it was almost like this just mind-bending moment where I'm kind of a frugal blue-collar guy. It physically pains me to spend that much money investing into the personal brand. But when I looked up and said, oh, well, what would be a reasonable outcome over the next year? That's kind of what I came to. And so our goal is, hey, we'll spend, probably $500,000. We'll do $1 million in revenue by the end of the year. That's, basically break even when you factor in all the other costs of the business and all that stuff. But what that won't account for is probably the hundreds of thousands of dollars kind of dark social that will lead into all the other channels that will perform better, but then also the stacking momentum that'll be on the other end of that. And the best part is it's not just hamster wheel revenue. You're building a real asset. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I love, Chandler, throughout the last 30 minutes, if you guys haven't picked up on listening, are Chandler's very intentional, right? He's making intentional decisions, right? I'm going to do this on purpose. I can see a long-term vision. And that's the second thing I want to point out. Chandler's always had that long-term vision, right? Why am I going to college if these guys haven't even had businesses? I want a real business. I better go out and just do that, right? That's a long-term vision for his life, saying, and you might be listening to this $500,000 and start sweating, right? But of course, we already talked about Chandler scaling to 8 figures over at selfpublishing.com, right? So, again, it's having that long-term vision that I think is important for every entrepreneur, no matter what stage you're at, no matter how much you're making, and then being incredibly intentional. I wrote that down within seconds of him talking, a half an hour ago. He begins with the end in mind. He's intentional. So around here, we're team win, what's important now. And I think when you know the end, you can decide what's important now very, very easily. And, Chandler, he's a little dismissive of himself, like, oh, that's kind of silly. Oh, it's not really strategic. It's very strategic, you guys. Don't let him fool you. That's just that that's that Texas humility, okay, coming out. That's that Texas humility coming out. It's very, very strategic because he knows where he's going. He has that vision and he's taking those intentional steps. So I just want to give you your roses there, Mr. Bolt.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would agree with that. Chandler, before we move into a quick discussion about authorship today, speaking of personal brand stuff, where's that at for you? Where should people go to check you out and see how and where this goes?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be one of the earlier followers on the Instagram, you can check out Chandler Bolt Instagram or selfpublishing.com Instagram. And then the long form stuff, I mean, that's really the main focus. So that's on selfpublishing.com's YouTube and Chandler Bolt. We drop videos every week on both those platforms. Chandler Bolt's all about scaling a business. Selfpublishing.com stuff is all about publishing books that grow your business.
Nice. And that's a great segue into publishing books today, 2026, leading into 2027. The landscape of publishing books has changed. I'm personally 1 year since my New York Times bestselling traditional published book that I look back and I go, why did I care about that so much? Because nothing really changed other than my byline for intros is one line bigger, and that's it. So I'm definitely in favor of self-publishing over traditional at this moment in time after that. And I finally was able to kind of go through that process for real for the first time and really understand that because that's how you learn. I learned. But today, books are being read less, it seems. I'm in conversations with a number of authors who have seen their numbers go down. Even Tim Ferriss came out with an article about books. Now, he didn't say we should stop writing books, but he did say the reason to write books is different now. I'm curious your thoughts in the world today, high level. Obviously, books are still working for many people, especially niche audiences, but how do you wrap your head around today's authorship space and why might a person still consider writing a book? And we can go from there.
Books have been dead for so long. It's so funny. I mean, when the Kindle came out, books were dead. Physical books are dead. There's so many times where people have said, hey, books are dead. And I think it's, as you mentioned, it's still one of, if not the most powerful ways to grow authority and to grow a business. I mean, shoot, the root word of authority is author. You can't spell the word authority without it. And if you've got a business and you're willing to write a niche book, which I love that. I love that piece of what you said. The riches are in the niches, right? We all know that. But somehow it feels weird, especially when you're writing a book. It's like, well, hold up. No, I want to make sure I'm, appealing to everyone, and you end up appealing to no one. And even if your book doesn't get read by the end person, it's one of the biggest ways that you can grow your authority in the space that you're in. I mean, so that's what we're seeing is that it is what's old becomes new again. I mean, if you look at the biggest media personalities in the space, it's funny, I was speaking at an event the other day called New Media Summit. And I just made the joke when I come on stage, I'm like, hey, I'm talking about books. It's the oldest media or medium that exists, but it's become new again. And if you see the Cody Sanchez's of the world, the Alex Hormozzi's of the world, the Dan Martells, all of them, they realize, oh, I've got a surface level audience here on social. Now I want to get them to take a small step forward in the direction of working further with me. Well, that's a book. We know people who pay attention. So when they buy the book, now they're paying attention and now they're in my ecosystem. And that's where it's growing businesses like crazy, including ours.
Yeah, I want to share. So Chandler just said, like, even if people don't read the book, y'all, I mentioned I met Chandler back in like 2018 or something. I still have a book that he personally handed me that I have never read, but I was talking with some team members at SPI and I said, "Oh, do you guys know Chandler Bolt, selfpublishing.com?" And they said, "Who?" I said, "Chandler Bolt, just look him up. He's super famous." And they said, "He doesn't even have an Instagram." This was a while back. And I was like, what? There's no way. This guy is huge. And it's because I've been staring at this man's book for nearly a decade now, y'all. So what he is saying is true. Write the book.
Great. That's proof, right? That's the funny thing is I've pretty much never had a business card, but we as a company stopped handing them out so long ago, and we just hand out books. If you think about it, business cards, maybe 50 cents, a book's $5. Sure, it's more expensive, but you give that book to someone, they keep it, as you did, Liz, for years, a decade, right? You give them a business card, they throw that sucker away within 24 hours. And so if you want to be in the hearts, minds, living room, office, whatever of the people that you meet, a book is the best business card that exists, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think you wrote a quick note in the one that you gave me, and it's like, I'm never going to throw that away, right? Because it's personalized and it just takes a second to do. So I really love that as a tool. And I think that the why behind writing a book is no longer the why I want to be a bestseller or, any of that kind of stuff. It's a tool, a utility for A, getting on stages and building authority really fast, but also B, like you said, bringing people that matter, your ideal customer, into your ecosystem. And it's an amazing lead magnet. There's so many ways to use and utilize a book. We just have to approach it differently because I think the landscape has changed, but the books have not gone away. They're just being used smartly by some smart people. And so if a person wants to get started, it's not, let me write the next, bestseller book that's going to be at Barnes & Noble. It's what does my customer need to hear from me and how do we get them in the door? And that's where Will It Fly came from. And Superfans went a little bit wider, and then Lean Learning went even wider. And honestly, my still most useful book that we've had in the business that has helped the most people is Will It Fly, because it was really tailored. It was niched down to how do you find your business idea? Like that's all it answers. And that has done its job, and it's done its job for 11 years now. So the books crazy. They still matter. And so I'm glad that there's companies like yours helping people get that out there. And if, Chandler, people wanted to get started in that process and they love what they've heard from you today and they want to go deeper into your ecosystem, where would you recommend they go?
Yeah, we'll make a link for you guys. So selfpublishing.com/SPI. You can go there and you can book a call with my team. We'd be happy to chat with you about your goals with your book, your challenges with your book, kind of customize a plan. And whether you work with us or not, we'll kind of map out what that plan looks like. We'll see how we can help. We've got this thing called the one-page book launch plan that we walk people through. It's kind of fun. It's exactly what you were just talking about, Pat, which is beginning with the end in mind and kind of putting the plan in a page. And so people can go there, book a call with the team, and we'll see if we can help them.
Nice. How long ago did you get the domain selfpublishing.com? Because forever I always knew it as selfpublishingschool.com. When was that?
Yeah, it's so funny. That's almost a funny story in itself. I bought the domain, I want to say in 2021. And we did this massive rebrand, and everyone still calls it Self-Publishing School. It's so funny because we're thinking, yeah, we want to own the self-publishing space. We got the domain. Boom. Now we're selfpublishing.com. And literally years later, people still call us Self-Publishing School.
That's how I introed you today, wasn't it? Like, literally. That is so funny.
I don't know. Maybe
that's
the
power
brand
of
is
branding. That's the power of branding, guys.
Apparently we got to do a better job of branding selfpublishing.com.
It takes a while. It takes a while. And I love that, Pat mentioned his Will It Fly. And this is just such a testament to, yes, write the book. What do your customers need? Because I was just talking to a friend and they said, oh, I heard that you were, working over at SPI now. And I said, yeah, it's been great. I met Pat a couple years ago, blah, blah, blah. And they turned around and they picked up Will It Fly. And they said, I never heard of Pat Flynn until a couple weeks ago. Somebody recommended this book, right? And so it all starts with what Chandler is saying, that 1-page plan. And you never know where it's going to take you. Oh, I'm starting to get excited for folks because a book really is where it's at. So that's so cool.
selfpublishing.com/SPI. Go there now.
Yes, sir.
And Chandler, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you so much. And on behalf of everybody here, just thank you. Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Liz and I, both interviewing Chandler Bolt. And you can find him and his resources over at selfpublishing.com/SPI. Again, selfpublishing.com/SPI. You heard it here. Why books still matter and how you can write one for yourself too. So go ahead and check it out. smartpassiveincome.com/session 937 for the show notes, but selfpublishing.com/SPI for Chandler stuff. Thanks, Chandler. Appreciate you. And thank you all for listening. Liz and I will be back next week for another episode where we're going to tackle some big topics and help you out in your journey, no matter where you're at, even if you've been starting this business just recently or you've been doing this for a while. We got stuff that's going to be helpful coming your way. We got you.
What up? Liz Wilcox here. I have to tell you about something that genuinely changed how I think about building a business online. Look, I turned a $9 offer into multiple 6 figures without a single ad. It sounds unbelievable, but the secret wasn't some fancy funnel or a viral moment. It was relationships. I'm talking real human. I actually know your name relationships with the people on my list and inside my community. And that's exactly what the Superfans system is built on. It's a step-by-step framework that takes you from wherever you are right now, whether you're just starting out or you've been at this for a while, and it gives you a clear, focused path to building an audience that doesn't just follow you, but genuinely loves what you do. We're talking courses, community, a live support, and a system that's actually doable. We don't want to overwhelm you. We want you to stop guessing. And so we're going to give you this real roadmap to your real superfans. Are you ready? Yes, you are. Head to superfans.smartpassiveincome.com. Let's get you started.